Welcome to BridgeTalk, the podcast that bridges university studies with the realities of industry for engineers here at UCD. We're your hosts, Harrison,
Nathan,
Zoe,
and Ola.
Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing well, and I am Naman, the audio engineer working behind the scenes.
Join us as we speak with industry leaders, UCD alumni, researchers, and students who have crossed the bridge themselves, uncovering the technical skills, stories, and insights that help turn academic experience into meaningful engineering careers.
this is BridgeTalk, where our mission is simple. We want to help engineering students move from university to industry. We want to build a bridge for them.
Today, we are excited to welcome our very first guest, Professor Allen Higgins. We will dive deeper into his career and experiences throughout the podcast, but to give you a quick background, he had around 15 years of experience managing software engineering teams at various industry companies before beginning his work for UCD. Here, he's been for the past 20-ish years. He has started his own podcast, Design Talk, so make sure to go check that out when you get a chance. Anyways, a huge thanks to Allen for coming to chat with us and sharing his experiences. Let's get to it.
Button, now it's red.
All right, here we are. Good morning. Welcome to Bridge Talk. Here we are with Allen Higgins. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks.
Thanks for coming on. We're super happy to have you. To start off, could you tell us a little bit about your educational path? I stalked your LinkedIn, of course. I see that you got a BSc, and an MBS. How has each prepared you differently for what you've been doing today and throughout your career?
I guess they've all built up over time into something that fits my career. Yeah. The BSc is a kind of foundation. The BEng is great for developing curiosity and create a mindset. And the MBS at the time, Masters in Business Studies, was really an in into understanding the operation, how businesses work, because I needed that after years in business to understand why things don't go the way you expect them to. As an engineer, you kind of expect things to work, and in reality, organizations aren't machines. Anyway, so that's that.
Can we dive a little bit more into that? So you were working in industry for about 15 years, correct?
Yeah.
And then you went back and got the MBS.
Yeah, I was still in industry, did that part-time.
So what was the decision making? I mean, you kind of went into a little bit, but
I think you should all consider going back to university at some point once you've got your degree, and do a master's or a diploma in areas that you perhaps are more interested in or more present. Changes. You're in engineering. Getting the new degree structure, I think, is a combined degree and master's, right? So you're never going to stop learning. Consider yourself really having only started the journey. I hate the word journey, but you're going to have to go back to college at some point or do additional qualifications.
yeah, thank you for that. Makes a ton of sense. Again, you did start in industry and then eventually switched to working here. Can you tell us a little bit more about that switch, kind of what inspired it, how it's been working out, and any other insights you have?
Okay, yeah. Don't normally get put on the spot like this.
Sorry.
But I was in industry, working in software firms, producing products, releases, did the degree, did the master's, was still working. This wasn't all part of a big plan. I came back into a teaching role as a temporary move, and it ended up not being temporary. Universities oftentimes tap into the workforce to specialisms to bring in people with experience. And I guess my journey is a little bit like that. My path into the university was because they had gaps in their teaching portfolio that I could address. And so I landed here. I was teaching for a while and gradually got embedded into the structure of the university, principally through that teaching role, which is incredibly demanding. I know a lot of people at a certain stage in their careers think, oh, I'd love to give back to my profession by teaching up-and-coming people and sharing my experience. I kind of had a little bit of that motivation. It wasn't the most powerful. I was probably a bit too mid-career for that to be the driving force. So that's what happened. And then at the same time, we had a very active professor in my department, and he was very proactive about getting funding from international agencies, the EU, and I got involved in proposal writing, and we won a few projects. I got tied into doing those research projects. And so it's a mix of research and teaching that's kept me here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So you like interacting with students? Yeah.
I like people. Students, it's probably a category error. I like interacting with people. Certainly, I think I was really motivated to share the learnings that I'd gained with people in industry. And when you say students, there could be people who are coming through undergrad, but also postgrad. Some of those postgrads would be, maybe it's their fourth or fifth sort of year of a continuing path through university. But I found more interesting the students who are coming back after a couple of years, like I had, seeking to understand and interpret the experiences they'd had in industry. So yeah, we can call them students, but we're all learners, and I think those people are super, super interesting.
I like that point you bring up, that a student doesn't necessarily have to be a young kid going through school, just anybody who's wanting to learn.
Totally, yes. Colleagues in the university, but people in industry. And the thing with the university is you think, oh, that's where learning happens. But actually for industry, a lot of learning happens in the industry sector these days. So for a university to remain relevant, it really has to tap into the industry sector, corporations and projects that are happening outside the university, because that's where a lot of the science in some of our fields is actually happening. There was an inflection point in 2000, sort of early noughties, where the infrastructure requirements for computing and computer engineering, for software engineering, for computer science, for some of the strands of traditional engineering. In fact, nearly all of them have been impacted by the digital revolution in terms of CAD and digital design and what have you. That's, across civil, across mechanical, electrical computing. The universities don't have the resources to cope, to satisfy the compute demand. So it naturally gravitated towards industry sector being the crucible where the cutting edge science was happening. And that's been amplified with the shift to large language models, data farm driven, foundation AI development, as all basically industry focused now, as you can see from looking at the papers on Zivark, ArcZiv, whatever you call it.
So where do you see your career going?
Probably doing this kind of thing for the next few years. When I say this kind of thing, engaging in conversations with students, with industry people, with industry people, talking to students. So this sort of podcasting thing is something I'm passionate about. I'm towards near the tail end of my career, so my career isn't going to rapidly change in any particular way. So that's where I see myself going.
So this means that you don't plan on going back to the industry?
It's tempting, I have to say. I've been teaching some courses recently to undergrad, Introduction to Programming, for economics and finance. I don't know. I'm Australian, so I call it Econ-Fi, but my wife was telling me it's Econ-Fi. And in tuning that course towards the needs of that particular student body, I started to tap into my industry contacts to find out, well, what are Ec and Phi students studying software for, learning to program for? And in the course of that exploration, those discussions, I've discovered that the salaries are absolutely incredible. It's crazy out there. I mean, recent graduates are very handsomely compensated. Maybe old retirees can equally be compensated. I'm not sure if that's much of a pull for me, to be honest. I think I'd much rather focus on sort of some aspirational projects I have in mind. I won't talk about them now, but I'm not going to go back to work for a big corporation.
Okay, and how has your work on your podcast design talk challenged you and your career?
I guess I was listening to a colleague, industry contact, talking about why you do something. Now, she said, you've got to find something you're going to like to do because you're going to do a lot of it. I didn't know I was going to like doing the direction and the production of podcasting when I started it. I started this project just prior to COVID to add some additional value to my own teaching. When I bring guest speakers in, occasionally in a talk class, in a talk course, you'll bring industry people in to talk to the students. And that's great. And people are very accommodating and willing to do that. But I always felt that these moments are lost forever after they've happened. And some of those conversations had such value and learning in them that it was selfish to keep it all just for that one instance. Now, I'm a big favor of performance and live experiences, but for these people, it was such an effort to come into the university, to make time available, to fit in with the class schedule, to prepare and talk to the topics. And I wanted to give something back to them and also capture something of value for the next generation of students. I'm not sure that these conversations are always going to be pertinent, but some of them certainly are, and it's a kind of historical record, and the guests get something out of it. Along the way, back to the point of what I get out of it, well, I've learned how to do the sound engineering to a better degree than I would have. My engineering, electrical computer from University of Queensland, we all got very practical hands-on experience in labs using electronic devices. But this is much more, there's the little pieces along the way, the quality of a microphone, the connections, the audio environment that you consider, then the file that you capture if you're recording. Every little piece is a piece of a jigsaw puzzle of the whole product. And what I like is reaching that point where it's finished and to a professional or near professional high standard.
We kind of talked earlier about this idea of a student. So take this question as broadly as you want to, but what experience during your time as a student do you think best prepared you for your job and just work in general?
It's a tricky question. I could answer it a couple of ways. The one thing I'm going to focus on is not every course and every class in every course is going to deliver something of value to you. As a younger student, I was I guess many people are utilitarian. What's this going to do for me? What's the benefit? I would say you can't put, you should expect not to have a high degree of utility from each and every module that you do. It's rare that a course is so aligned with what you end up doing later that you'll apply everything. So be prepared to learn stuff that you'll never apply again. If you've found one class that shines in a 4-year, 5-year degree that gives you that spark of inspiration, then I think you've done well. Some students won't ever find that class. If you find 2 or 3, even better.
Did you have that class, or did you have an internship, or
I
some
guess
other experience
thinking about
that
it in
kind of
terms of
sparked you?
thinking about it as a class might not be the right term either. It could be an internship. It could be a project that was outside of the class. I think I certainly had that experience, 1 or 2 points along the way, and that little bit of, I don't know, curiosity, that sort of where you feel like you're really learning, and perhaps that validates you in some way that you feel like, yeah, I could do this, a lot of this. It could fill my time. Yeah.
And how relevant do you think the personal projects are compared to the coursework?
Projects are really important because coursework is quite abstract oftentimes. It's a syllabus of topics that has some flow, connection, but isn't always connected or integrated. And it's often impossible for it to be, for a class and even a program, to be designed in this sort of simplistic, stepwise manner. So projects act as kind of boundary-spanning devices that allow you to bring in learning from a lot of your subjects. So really, really important, if I can emphasize that, really important.
And with the advent of AI, do you think it makes a lot of sense for students to leverage such technology to build their personal projects?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a pivot in the conversation. So AI in education is, I think, it's presenting real challenges to education. Totally. At the outset, when ChatGPT, the first version from OpenAI, was released, and some of the prior LLMs, which were a bit too sophisticated for general use, but this simplistic web-based interface that suddenly opened up the world of AI machine learning to customers, the first versions of that were essentially designed, the business case was all designed around the application area, was sort of study aids, cheat notes. I could be harsh, but they were used for plagiaristic style kind of content. And also, I think it's fair for us to acknowledge that they are plagiarism's engines. They are trained on third-party material, so they really aren't smart. They're just regurgitators in a smart manner using the underlying structure of language, which is encoded in the LLMs themselves. So they're copyright flagrantly generating, breaking all the rules, producing stuff which is useful, right? So that's where it started from. So it was always adversarial, in a sense, with the educational process. Partially because they sit behind firewalls, they're proprietary, and there was no opacity on the way the models are constructed. So they're doubly problematic. They're not open. They've reached a point where their utility is just so pervasive that they have to become part of an educational process. So we are in the process of resolving how to create educational experiences that aren't gameable by the use of AI. And the use of AI is, so many areas it's problematic in. And one of the greatest problematic areas, in addition to the energy costs, in addition to the compute resource, the addition to all these sort of bubble economy effects, the use of AI is a social barrier. It's okay if you're in the moat. I've heard that expression recently quite a lot in finance, where competitive advantage is described as being in the moat. So for example, a colleague was talking about the way a particular sort of data formatting approach that's not public and proprietary and is difficult to understand means that the people who understand that data format are in the moat. They have a commercial advantage over people who are outside of the moat. So take this moat metaphor a little further with the AI. Yes, it's all wonderful and all very good, but are you paying for access to Claude or the latest Gemini or the latest ChatGPT? Do you have the financial resources to incur that cost? Do you choose one versus the other? So it's become this commercial calculation, which is actually problematic for education, which should be open. Education is a public good. In a sense, universities are non-profits. Why should universities line the pockets of for-profits, particularly as we're part of this long sort of supply chain of students going in to feed the industry, et cetera, et cetera? But yeah, I mean, that issue of access is maybe not as big a deal, problematic in a Western economy, but in a developing country, it's a big issue, as is the access to the infrastructure. So yeah, I could go on.
And what skills do you think students should work on before getting into the industry?
Depends on the career path and the profession you're learning to or seeking to join. Totally. You've probably heard that Steve Jobs' adage, I'm not sure, that computers are bicycles for the mind. So with that in mind, yes, everybody should. It's a should sort of. It's a very weak expression, should. But yeah, students from university should have a fairly good understanding of AI, how to use it effectively, how to prompt engineer, how to save their prompts, how to manage the versions, how to check the quality. So those things are generic, I think, these days now. That's how pervasive this current era of generative AI has become. Other than that, focus on your profession. Focus on making connections with your own class, and focus on the things that make your profession distinctive. That has to be, in a sense, rethought for many industries because or professions because of this new technology. But there is always that intrinsic heart that makes the profession necessary and special. So graphic design, for example, has gone through multiple iterations over the last few decades in terms of what makes a graphic designer and special and a treasured role. And no amount of slop AI is going to replace the graphic designer. It will mean there's more images out there, sure, but the graphic designer has professional kind of embeddedness and has the language to properly do good graphic design. They might do web design now and UI, but there is something that you have to focus on, the sort of essence of your profession. What is that for engineering, I wonder?
Coding. That's
the strangest thing, because back when I was doing the degree, there was this big war between where software, computer science should live and how pervasive coding would be. But still, you still need to understand capacitors and inductors and circuit design or load-bearing material properties, all that stuff which is central to engineering. Coding, yes, but yeah.
I like the fact that you brought up those other disciplines. Looking at it, don't you think it would be expensive for students to purchase all those equipment to learn?
Well, there's two things. Equipment, like things, device, like let's say you want to get into circuit design. Yes, you should have a soldering iron. You need the basic tools of your profession. A very good colleague of mine, Roland Trich, was recounting his father's profession as a metallurgist, I think, or a metal worker. And his dad had a set of tools of punches and hammers and chisels, all for working metal. And his tools were imprinted with his name on them. He engraved his name. You need to own your tools. At some level, yes, it's a soldering iron. It's a magnifying glass to work on fine work, or it's a loop for looking at something at high degree of magnification in the field, or it's a recording device. I don't know. You have your physical tools, And that's just the cost of doing the business, I'm afraid. So you need to invest a little bit because you're investing so much of your time in your university degree. You need good tools. You need a watch. You need a stethoscope. What is annoying is when the third parties, the infrastructure becomes costly. That's where I was complaining about the cost, the infrastructure being costly. So for here at the university, we have free access to Gemini through the arrangements that the university has with Google. But we don't have anything with Anthropic as far as I'm aware. So all of those tools, if they're going to be learnt, should be available at little or no cost to students.
Okay, and what resources have employee at your company used to gain technical skills as they process in their career? And do students have access to this?
So I'm going to interpret that as a continuing professional development question for people in industry. I don't think it will relate as much to students because you're just learning all the time. You've got so much learning resources available to you. Back to the professional setting, you may end up in a company in a work environment where they're resource constrained, and you have to fight for I don't know, lab device or a new piece of software. But what has become commonplace in all of our professions these days is the need for continuing professional development, CPD. And for you to remain accredited as an engineer, for example, as a medical professional, you must undergo CPD, continuing professional development. That's a requirement of the workforce, the workplace. And so the workplace has to support that. So in a sense, you have arguments and levers to utilize. So don't be passive, ask for stuff, make a case, and certainly at the very least, turn it into an exercise of continuing professional development that benefits your work.
Okay, we're going to play a little game now. We're going to spin this little wheel, and we have different categories. So it's going to be a hot take, a reality check, a trend tracker, tool talk, red or green flag, or spin again. And we'll dive a little bit more into whatever it means when we land on it. Okay, we're spinning.
Oh my God, I love games, but I don't like being the guinea pig. Go.
Okay, so we got tool talk. I guess we were just kind of talking about this, so this fits in really well to our discussion, but tell us about a tool you use for tech work or podcast recording or networking or anything that's really relevant to what you've been up to these days.
Yeah, okay. Quick one. PowerPoint has actually grown into being quite a nice, quick and easy graphic design tool. PowerPoint is brilliant.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, one more.
Spinny, spinny wheel. Ooh.
Oh, spin again. Now we're just wasting time.
Now we're just wasting time, right. Okay. Why is that category there? At least it's not spin the wheel again.
Yes. So we have trend tracker. Tell us a current trend in tech and your opinion on its longevity.
Ooh. Well, the elephant in the room is generative AI. I really hate the word AI because it isn't art, it isn't intelligence. But generative AI, I would say my focus on that at the minute is on coding. I kind of love the ease of access to custom-tuned models through Hugging Face that you get with Python's transformer library, or at least Hugging Face's transformer package that you can use in Python. And suddenly it opens up a world of possibilities for anybody with a basic laptop computer. So yeah.
And you see it just like going farther and helping more and more people, just continuing to grow?
Where it's really interesting, I think, is in this open source space. And yeah, in the open source space, yes, it will benefit many.
Okay, awesome. Does anybody have any last questions for Allen?
So I got a question for you. What have you learnt from this being on the other side of the microphone?
It's quite an interesting experience. Never actually done anything like this before. I hope to probably be involved in a podcast where I share my experience sometime in the future. Yeah.
Ola's our next guest.
It's an interesting experience. My first time do a podcast and interview like this, so it's been interesting.
Actually, it's my first time. It's my first time or to listen or speak as a podcast. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it was really interesting to do kind of just getting to meet you and talk a little bit more about your career in a formalized manner to be shared. Like you were saying earlier, it does feel kind of selfish to make these connections and then have it only be a one-time use and maybe only for you personally, when it could be shared with everybody and everybody could benefit from the conversation that we've had. So I think it's really exciting to be able to put this out there.
Yeah, well, I hope you continue the process and go through the pain of getting it ready for publishing and continue, maybe bring it into your own personal learning practice, because what better way to make sense of something that you're not 100% sure about? Question other people, have a conversation. And for me, it's been super fantastic in terms of reconnecting myself with industry and finding out what's happening and making those relationships quite real and tangible.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time and expertise. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.